assignment tonight is strategic. You can't give the enemy a break. Send them to hell. All right, let's go!
It's been called the greatest war film ever made.
Starting the war from right here.
It was produced by one of the greatest filmmakers who ever lived. But behind the epic on-screen battles was a struggle for power that threatened to topple one of Hollywood's legendary movie studios. Ambition, conflict, and the price of glory. On Backstory, The Longest Day.
We're on the threshold of the most crucial day of our times. All right, let's go!
For legendary producer Darryl F. Zanuck, The Longest Day was more than just a movie.
Invasion! On our way.
It became an obsession for which he was prepared to risk everything.
That picture became his life. He was determined, and when I think back on it, I think back on all the things he used to say about if you want to do something, do it. Don't let anyone stop you.
In 1933, Darryl F. Zanuck left his job as head of production at Warner Brothers and founded the company which became known as 20th Century Fox.
We are all united in one common work, the work of making 20th Century Fox the outstanding company in the moving picture industry, and we will succeed.
There, he personally supervised the production of literally hundreds of films.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ranger. Thank you very much, Douglas. Thank you very much, Bob. I wish to thank you on behalf of the entire 20th Century Fox studio.
Everything from tuneful musicals to thought-provoking social dramas.
Zanuck, what are you two lovers?
Darryl Zanuck was very much hands-on. His interest was films, and he didn't give a damn about anything but doing a good job.
But in the early 1950s, television had crippled the once powerful motion picture industry, and the studio system that Zanuck had helped build was gasping its last breath.
A lot of the stars were now independent. A lot of the contract directors were no longer there. And Zanuck said, I'm no longer the production chief. I'm more of a negotiator with people and their agents.
He was a filmmaker, and he wanted to make pictures. He didn't want to be submerged in all the business aspects of it.
Zanuck was burned out and disillusioned. It also didn't help that his wife had recently found out about the affair he was having with a much younger actress and family friend named Bella Darby. Although Zanuck's sexual escapades were legendary in Hollywood, this particular fling sent shockwaves through Hollywood's otherwise liberal creative community.
It was like Hollywood went to war. Everybody took sides. And my mother was very, very popular. She was a sympathetic person. And I think that my father just couldn't stand it. He just wanted to get away from the whole thing.
Leaving his job as Fox's production chief, Darryl Zanuck, or DFZ as he was widely known, boarded a plane for Paris, vowing never to return to Hollywood.
Darryl Zanuck decided he had no more use for Hollywood. He said, you know, I'm tired of it. I'm burnt out. And he just took off for Paris, which was his favorite city.
My first independent production has just been completed. It is Island in the Sun, based on the best-selling novel by Alec Waugh.
Now living the life of an expatriate producer, Zanuck launched a string of ambitious but mostly disappointing films. He began to drink heavily and, at one point, even suffered a minor stroke.
People were saying, well, Darryl's through, he's washed up, he's finished, and he started to lose his confidence, which was unfortunate because if there's one thing that Zanuck always had, was confidence.
DFZ was desperate for a project that would revive his faltering career and his reputation. It was then that he discovered The Longest Day, Cornelius Ryan's riveting account of the D-Day invasion of Normandy during World War II. The book appealed to Zanuck for many reasons. It was an epic true story about a day that changed the course of human history. It also appealed to Darryl's conservative Midwestern patriotism and his own first-hand memories of 2 world wars.
Well, during World War II, of course, Zanuck was not in Hollywood. He was off at war. In terms of his own life, it was obviously important, and it gave him the idea, many years later, to do The Longest Day.
Making The Longest Day quickly became Darryl's only dream. In keeping with the book's journalistic approach, Zanuck wanted to scrap traditional narrative storytelling in favor of a more documentary style. The film would be shot on location in France and photographed in black and white. It would also feature actors from all corners of the globe and would have English, French, and German characters speaking in their native languages with the help of subtitles.
Der Führer darf nicht geweckt werden.
This was supposed to be a balanced look.
Jetzt möchte ich wirklich wissen, auf welcher Seite der liebe Gott steht.
A realistic look in retrospect, so that you could see, what was happening behind the scenes.
Bitte! Bitte!
From all sides, versus, now it's the good guys coming in and knocking out the bad guys.
I wonder what bitter means.
In early 1961, Zanuck went to work on the script with author Cornelius Ryan. He also hired a small battalion of directors, 4 in all, each one representing the point of view of the story's fighting forces. Kurt Oswald and Andrew Martin would handle the scenes involving American GIs.
Only 2 kinds of people are gonna stay on this beach. Those that are already dead and those that are gonna die. Now get off your butts!
Bernhard Wicki would cover the German perspective.
Was ist denn mit Ihnen? Flüssigkeit, was ist los da? Die 5000 Schiffe, die die Alliierten gar nicht haben können, wie Sie meinen. Sie haben sie! Ja, Sie haben sie!
And Englishman Ken Anakin would direct sequences involving British forces.
Right, Tom. Over the bridge!
Darryl made it very clear from the beginning that he wanted to tell exactly as it was, and he was getting experts from the French resistance, from the British, and from a German who had been through it all. And therefore, it was something I felt was rather important.
Preparations for the film, nicknamed Z-Day, were in high gear. But in May of 1961, DFC was summoned to New York for a meeting of the Fox Board of Directors. There, the board informed Zanuck that his picture was about to be shut down. Fox's books were swimming in red ink due to costly overages from the runaway production of Cleopatra in Europe.
Cleopatra was a project that was initiated at Fox after Zanuck had left as production chief in 1956. It started off as a relatively modest enterprise, and it just grew, and the costs were escalating, and Fox was going broke.
But DFC wasn't a man to give up without a fight. Like an opposing general, he outflanked the board and attacked them with his powers of persuasion.
He could compel boards of directors and stockholders because he was a showman, and he would act out all the parts. He was kept unrolling a film in his mind. He was theatrical. He was great.
He mesmerized all the members of the board, some of whom had been, of course, in World War II and had even been at D-Day. And as a result, after this spellbinding oration, this sales job, they said, okay.
The board voted Darryl a budget of $8 million, but warned him that if he went so much as 1 penny over, they would shut the picture down.
Now, $8 million, that's still a sizable sum in 1962. But comparatively speaking to Cleopatra, it was, kind of a B movie.
With grit and determination, Darryl F. Zanuck had fought one of the greatest professional battles of his life. But whether or not Darryl could win the war was a question only time could answer. When Backstory returns, an army of stars hits the beaches, and DFC recreates the biggest battle of World War II.
Nicht mal mögen zu sehen. Invasion.
In June 1961, Darryl Zanuck took command of the Longest Day. He returned to Paris and began assembling an impressive army of international stars in 43 major roles. One of the first to sign on was Roddy McDowall, who was happy to get in a few days of work while waiting through Cleopatra's endless production delays.
Cleopatra went on and on and on and on and on, and at one point, when I hadn't worked for so long, I called Darryl up in Paris and said, please give me anything, anything, I have to work, because I was on Cleopatra for a year.
Hey, I made it. Did you see me get those 2 guys?
McDowall was just one of many stars who were eager to come to the aid of the man who had helped launch their careers. Henry Fonda.
Starting the war from right here.
Robert Wagner.
They can't even see them from the air. That's how we gotta knock them out, or they'll murder our guys on the beach.
Robert Mitchum.
All right, let's go!
And Richard Burton.
I think that's always worried me about being one of the few is the way we keep on getting fewer.
Had each made their marks in earlier Zanuck productions. Red Buttons was offered his role in the film after bumping into Zanuck at a Parisian cafe.
He said, have you read a book called The Longest Day? I said, as a matter of fact, I just read it coming over, which I did. He said, I'd like you to play the paratrooper who gets stuck on a church steeple in Sam Araglese in Normandy. I almost went into cardiac arrest, because for my money, I thought that was the best cameo in the movie.
Playing one of an ill-fated group of paratroopers who mistakenly land in the middle of a heavily fortified town, Button's character is suspended from a church steeple and watches helplessly as his comrades are slaughtered.
In Washington, D.C., I met the guy who I played, the paratrooper, the actual guy. His name was John Steele. And when the picture was over, he stuck his arm around me and he said, "Kid, if I'd have lived my life all over again, I'm glad you did it, not me."
Have company? They overshot the drop zone and landed in the middle of the town. Go on. That was a nightmare, sir. Slaughter. They were mowed down before they hit the ground.
Darryl Zanuck scored a major victory when he landed John Wayne for the critical role of Lieutenant Colonel Benjamin Vandervoot.
You 82nd?
No, sir. 101.
Well, you're in the 82nd now.
In order to make his film appeal to the broadest possible audience, Zanuck took out what he called a little insurance by casting teen idols Paul Anka, Tommy Sands, Sal Mineo, and Fabian in cameo roles.
We come up all this way for nothing?
Stand by! Let's get them back for Dunkirk.
Do you hear that? But Jesus, Dunkirk. Did you hear it, Clough? Sure, he was still at school at the time.
One of the other fresh new faces to make an appearance in the film was a relatively unknown actor named Sean Connery, who had recently accepted another role as the screen's first Bond, James Bond.
Did you ever hear such a bleeding racket in all your life?
Yeah, it takes an Irishman to play the pipes.
Principal photography on The Longest Day began in August 1961, using 31 separate exterior locations throughout Normandy.
Head inland, we're going inland.
Every effort was made to shoot scenes on the very same sites where battles had been fought 17 years earlier. With unprecedented military cooperation, authentic World War II planes, tanks, and armaments were gathered from around the globe, and whatever couldn't be found was carefully reconstructed.
Hang on!
It was no wonder the New York Times had dubbed Zanuck the Supreme Commander after General Eisenhower.
He was almost like staging D-Day all over again. He had units working all over the place, and he was orchestrating this whole mass maneuver that involved armies, that he was getting from France and from England and from the United States.
For budget and scheduling reasons, Zanuck had all 4 directors working simultaneously at different locations throughout the region. While Gert Oswald supervised the paratrooper action at Saint-Mary-Glise, Andrew Martin was 200 miles away, filming Spitfires strafing a column of German troops. But there was far more to The Longest Day than spectacular battle sequences. Darryl Zanuck never let the audience forget that the story of D-Day was also a personal human drama.
You ever killed a man? I mean, face to face?
No.
Neither had I. Face to face.
It really was incredible. The intimacy wasn't lost inside the huge panorama of it. It was an extraordinary achievement.
By early fall, Zanuck and his crew were ready to shoot the film's most ambitious sequence.
Stand by!
The storming of the beaches.
Achtung! Fire!
But what Zanuck's cast and crew didn't know was that the film had already exceeded its tight $8 million budget, and the producer was now financing the film with money from his own pocket. If Zanuck was worried, he kept it to himself.
I remember it was a very cold day, and he was bringing in 3,000 French infantry on loan. And he came to me and he said, you know, Ken, I reckon that we've got $3 million worth of equipment and people on the beach today. Please make sure that we see it all. That was all he said. And you do see it all.
With the film's most ambitious and difficult sequences completed, Zanuck knew that his film had all the elements necessary to ensure box office success. But what DFC didn't count on was the devastating impact Cleopatra threatened to have on his masterpiece. Cleopatra's costs had swollen to more than $40 million, 5 times the budget of The Longest Day. Fox stockholders were in a panic, and the studio was desperate for revenue. Studio management virtually shut the company down and began selling off valuable assets and real estate. They also looked to The Longest Day as a source for quick cash.
I think he realized that the company was in such dire financial straits that they were going to take his picture and dump it out there in order to get cash back into the company to pay off this terrible Cleopatra debt that they had rung up.
Infuriated that the Fox board would scavenge The Longest Day by releasing it as a B movie, Darryl flew to New York for a long overdue showdown.
It was a great conflict. It was like a head-on collision. Imagine the LSTs and all arriving on the beach The Longest Day and smashing into Cleopatra. One film had to go, and it was Cleopatra.
He went to the board, and I sat there in the corner, and it was one of the most amazing performances I've ever seen in my life. But he hit them on an emotional level as the founder of the company and absolutely attacked them. And after a couple of hours of this tirade, they were totally wiped out, actually, and he took over the company, and it was as simple as that.
On July 25th, 1962, by a vote of 8-3, Darryl F. Zanuck was elected president of 20th Century Fox. He had conquered the studio and taken no prisoners, but the final battle was about to be waged at the box office. Coming up, The Longest Day premieres, and Darryl F. Zanuck wins his greatest victory.
In the most unusual tribute ever paid a motion picture, the City of Light illuminates its enchanting Trocadero Gardens to celebrate the world premiere of The Longest Day.
The Longest Day premiered in Paris on September 25th, 1962, and the spectacular event became a source of French national pride.
The man responsible for the gala premiere, Darryl F. Zanuck, attends with Irina Demick, who plays the part of the underground heroine in The Longest Day.
I was with him the night of the premiere, and I was sitting right next to him in Paris. He had Edith Piaf singing from the Eiffel Tower. What a night, what a night, what a showman he was.
A rare tribute indeed on this history-making night of nights.
The New York premiere 9 days later was also a night to remember.
The tidal wave of enthusiasm that started in Paris rolls with ever-growing momentum over New York to honor Mr. Zanuck's incredible achievements in The Longest Day. And like the Eiffel Tower, the lights of the Great White Way emblazon the night to hail the immortalizing of the historic events of June 6, 1944.
I remember going to the opening in New York. When it was released, it was, I mean, absolutely mind-blowing. I had no idea when I went to the opening of that film that it was going to be the way that it was. It was extraordinary.
As a group from the cast of The Longest Day is joined by Red Buttons, another of the 42 international stars of the fascinating film.
Zanuck's enormous publicity paid off. The Longest Day proved to be a box office smash. It received almost universal acclaim and was nominated for 5 Academy Awards, winning for cinematography and special effects. In its first year, The Longest Day grossed more than $25 million, and the huge profits helped breathe new life into 20th Century Fox. And as for Cleopatra, Zanuck took control of the $44 million production and slashed the film's projected 6-hour running time to 3 hours. It was a controversial move, but one that probably saved 20th Century Fox. For the next decade, Darryl Zanuck, together with his son Richard, guided 20th Century Fox through one of its most prolific and successful periods.
There wouldn't be a Fox Film Corporation, I don't think, without DFC. Those films have a great deal of him in them, of his convictions and of his soul.
But it was The Longest Day that would remain DFC's crowning achievement. An epic masterpiece that would serve as a benchmark for all war movies that followed.
That was, for my money, the definitive World War II motion picture. Zanuck was recording history in The Longest Day. He put it all together. The genius of Darryl Zanuck was to really put this all together.
I wonder who won.